What is up, everybody? We are live with another episode of Destination the Show. This is episode 89, the I Have Power Back episode. Oh, wait, no, it's not. It is the Jhoan Duran just got traded to the Philadelphia Phillies. Jeremy, hello. How are you?
Hey,
What's going on?
hey, I want to say this right off the bat. You told us that this was not going to happen.
I did.
I said, let's sell them all, trade them all.
You
And
just
you
say that.
said, it ain't happening. And it did. And it didn't even happen on deadline day. It happened almost a full 24 hours before the deadline. So, trade number 2, we did our Paddock one yesterday, and now we're ready to talk about a little bit bigger one. Paddock was great today, by the way.
Paddock was great today. Things are also looking better than they were on Paddock trade day because I have power. I'm not sitting in a caribou. We don't have terrible audio, so here we are ready to try and dig into this a little bit. Twins finish up their final series prior to the trade deadline, getting absolutely mauled by the Red Sox. I think, what is that, Jeremy? They lost all 4 series coming out of the break.
Oh, yes.
Rockies, Dodgers, Red Sox, Nationals going what? What is that? 3, 6, 9, 12. I can't do math. 1 and 2 in each of those series.
It's 4 and 8. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, not great.
4 and 8. Not great. Cementing their position as sellers. And today they made by far the biggest move of the trade deadline. Just to recap the trade, and then we'll kind of dig into how we're going to try and break this down. They sent closer Jhoan Duran to the Philadelphia Phillies, and in exchange received 18-year-old catching prospect Eduardo Tait, and then right-handed pitcher Mick, Abel. We've already heard the level those guys are going to report to, but let's just start with Jeremy. General, like, high-level thoughts on the trade. You were texting me kind of live updates of like, ooh, sounds like there's buzz going on Duran. And then as I was sitting in a gymnastics meet this afternoon, that progressively got towards, wait, hold on, I think this is really happening. Sounds like there's multiple organizations interested. What was your reaction when this went down, and what's your kind of knee-jerk reaction to this deal?
So I think the part that we have to remember always is that when your favorite team trades one of their good players, that you should get a better return. Always, right?
You mean then another person's favorite team trading one of their favorite players?
Right. So, like, if the Twins were buying right now and teams were like, yeah, well, we want Walker Jenkins, you're saying, well, that's not going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you're trying to get Duran, then we're going to need Andrew Painter, right? Who is a top 10 prospect. And if that would have happened, I mean, we're not seeing top 100 prospects getting traded. So to see a top 10 prospects get traded, that would have been absolutely crazy.
Agreed.
But as
for a reliever, by the way.
Right. But
I don't care how much team control he has. But go ahead. Sorry to get across.
As the day progressed, it was like the Phillies are standing pat on not including Painter. And then there's other teams in the mix.
Yeah.
The Dodgers, who don't lose bidding wars ever. The Mariners, who have a kind of a maverick GM that's willing to do crazy things.
Yep.
For the Phillies to win this bidding war, that tells me that Dalton Rushing was definitely not on the table, right?
For sure.
Harry Ford was definitely not on the table. And this was the best return that the Twins were going to get, with a definite global top 100 prospect and a
fringy
who like, if this is how Zebby Matthews was last year, right? He was a fringy top 100 guy. David Festa, kind of a fringy top 100 guy. So you need those guys in the rotation. And Abel's 23, about to be 24.
Yep.
And so we're talking about a youngish, almost ready for the bigs, has started 5 games for the Phillies, and now after yesterday's conversation, for sure the best catching prospect in the organization, though he's a few promotions away.
100%. Okay, so let's talk about kind of globally, how are we going to break this down, and then we'll get a little bit more into specifics on some of these guys. So we're going to take on these guys one at a time. We'll do a little bit of an overview of the prospects, right? So dig into their bio, some of their recent numbers from whatever level they've most recently been at, some of their strengths, some of their opportunities. Then we'll talk about where might we place them in the Twins top 20, because I feel like that's always folks' number one question. And I think with at least one of these guys, that's a little bit of a challenging question to answer. And then I think maybe we can come back and talk a little bit more about, was the value good here? Do the fits make a lot of sense? And then where do we go from here? Because I told you when I was sounding real tinny, talking at you from a caribou, that I would ask you that question again. And now it's a significantly different question than it was like 48 hours ago. So let's start digging in on these guys. Let's start with Tait. That is the pronunciation, right? Like TAH-EET. Let's start with some rankings here, because that's something I feel like folks are always interested in. Not ranked in the top 100 prospects on Fangraphs or Keith Law's top 60 on The Athletic. 63rd overall on Just Baseball, 50th overall on Baseball America, 56th overall on MLB Pipeline. I did not grab ESPN's. Sorry, Kylie McDaniel. Big fan of your work, but just ran out of time here. So, like, consensus, not even.
We got a trade.
Get out of here, dude.
We do have a trade being reported in right now. All right, so Ken Rosenthal is reporting that the Chicago Cubs are acquiring right-hand pitcher Michael Soroka from the Washington Nationals.
I thought we were doing Twins trades.
Well, we didn't really specify which
God.
team we're doing trades of, so I just wanted to do the music and have fun with the bit. Anyway,
I enjoyed it, Theo. That was great.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
There's another team that we cover that has a player on the move to them. So continue back on.
Okay, Soroka, right on. That was awesome. Okay, Tait. So not, I think what's noteworthy here, right, is some of these different prospect lists go to 50, 60, 100, 100 plus. On the ones in which Tait is ranked, he's right around 50. So we're not talking about like a fringy top 100 prospect in the places where he's ranked. We're talking about someone who's squarely in the middle of that list. He's only going to go up that list, assuming he maintains health and performance, especially given something we've talked a lot about previously, which is just like the rate at which prospects are being moved to the majors and graduating more quickly. Just some bio stuff on him. 6 foot, 225 pounds, left-handed hitting catcher, 18 years old, currently at A+. Signed for $90,000 out of Panama. Well done, Philadelphia Phillies. In 2025 so far, he's played 82 games across low A and high A. He's hitting 255, 319, 434. It's 11 home runs, an 8% walk rate, an 18% strikeout rate, a 107 WRC plus combined across those two levels of A ball. And then just to quickly touch on some of the kind of strengths and areas of growth before I get your take, Jeremy, on what you think of Tait. It sounds like kind of a pull-heavy approach in terms of what it looks like offensively. He hits the ball really hard. This is absolutely the potential for plus power. I think it was a max EV of 114 in the Florida State League, which is insane for an 18-year-old. That's like 90th percentile plus. And if you did that and made that age adjusted, I think it would be even more impressive. Close to an 80% contact rate, which is going to be right around average. It's a really, here are the warts, I guess. It's a really, really aggressive approach. He does not walk much. He chases out of the zone a lot. The reports on the defense are what you might expect from a lower level catcher, right? It sounds like the Phillies were really impressed and pleased with how much he improved this year, particularly in the receiving game. It's definitely a plus arm, so he should be able to control the running game decently well. Jeremy, like we definitely speculated both kind of on previous episodes, and you and me texting constantly back and forth about potential catching prospects, and I don't think Tait was near the top of the list. We were talking more about guys like Harry Ford, like you mentioned, or Jefferson Cairo, or Dalton Rushing. Sounds like the Dodgers weren't interested in parting ways with him. What do you make of Tait, just given some of that context, right, of like where he's placed on top 100 lists, some of his performance so far, some of the strength and warts in his profile? What's your kind of read?
Yeah, so I think, our focus was more on guys that could help the team now,
Mhm.
right? So Rushing is going to back up Will Smith. He's not going to get a ton of reps, but he could come be, the other guy with Jeffers. Vasquez is leaving, so there's kind of an immediate need, right, for a catcher. But if you're scrolling down, and I'm just looking at the MLB list, Harry Ford. So Ballesteros is 47 overall.
Mhm.
Harry Ford is 49 overall, and Tait is 56 overall. So a guy who has a lower floor, obviously, probably a higher upside, and is left-handed hitting. Like the Twins have for a long time, after a catcher that hits left-handed, there's not a ton of them out there.
Yep.
That he matches really well as a catcher that, if he can be the primary catcher, that's huge. It's going to take a couple of years. He's at high A now. Probably, we're probably talking sometime in 2027 at the earliest.
Yep.
But if the thing was, we're looking for a catcher, like they did really well prospect wise. Just what's the timeline, right? Because there's going to have to be another catcher next year, and it could be a lesser of a prospect. And so, again, if you're okay with taking a risk on upside, I'm really good with the return. When Eduardo Escobar got traded to the Diamondbacks, the Twins went for upside, right? And Duran was not highly regarded at the time, and turned out to be a definite win for that trade. So I'm super good with taking that risk, because they also got another guy who's less of a risk. So I don't know if we want to talk about where we rank him, but a top 6 or 7 catching prospect in all of baseball, which is better than anything they could have drafted 2 weeks ago.
100% agree with that. And let's talk about Abel first and talk about his kind of bio, an overview of him a little bit as a prospect. Then we can come back to that. Where would we rank these guys? And I'm really glad you brought up I don't want to call it weird because that's too strong of a word, but we definitely focus more on, and the Twins, I think, have shown a preference for guys who are closer to MLB ready. And so later on, I want to have a conversation with you about what does this potentially mean for this uncertain ownership situation, potentially a front office in flux, that they are potentially looking longer term in terms of their value accrual. I think there's like a really interesting conversation to be had there. Around these guys. By the way, you're getting compliments on your hair, which I never will. So thanks, Josiah. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Thanks. That's very nice. I got my hair cut. But it was time.
It was time. Okay, let's talk about Abel real quick. So, I want to just address the rankings thing because we talked about where does Tait rank. Abel ranks in the top 100 only on one of the prospect list that I referenced. He's 92 on Pipeline. I think JJ Cooper from Baseball America called out that he just was bumped from Baseball America's list, but that was because of new draftees being added. Incidentally, the Twins had 2 additional top 100 prospects who were bumped off Baseball America's list because of incoming draftees, Kalen Culpepper and Dason Hill, who are both in the 90s, who are now in the 100 to 110 range. So I think that's kind of immaterial. Mick Abel, former consensus top 100 prospect, 23 years old, soon to be 24, 6'5", listed at 190, right-handed pitcher, the 15th overall pick in the 2020 draft. He's pitched 25 innings, had a cup of coffee in the majors so far this year. 5.04 ERA, 6.28 expected ERA. He has looked very good at AAA in Lehigh, incidentally, where I go for work. 74 innings so far, 2.31 ERA, 3.56 FIP, a 26.6% strikeout rate, very respectable there. 10.5% walk rate, a little bit high, 64% strikes. That's maybe a little bit light, maybe the one like slightly un-twinsy tendency there. The pitch mix part of me looks like this. Fastball that he throws about 46% of the time. Average velo there is 96. Sinker 14% of the time. Average velo 95.2. Slider 14% of the time, 87 miles an hour. Curveball he throws 22% of the time. Average velo there is 82.5. And then a changeup that might be a little bit too firm. He barely throws it. It's 4% of the time. Pardon me. Average velo there is 89. Close to 7 feet of extension. Something we know that the Twins like with Pablo and Bailey Ober and previously Chris Paddock. What do you make of Abel's inclusion? What's your read on him as a prospect and how he kind of fits in as a kind of secondary piece in this deal, I guess?
Yeah, so I think the part about Abel is he's been a very well-known prospect for a handful of years. So included in the preseason top 100 at Baseball America before 21, 22, 23, 24. MLB's top 100 all 4 years up to this year. At Baseball Prospectus, preseason top 100, 21, 22, 23. And a lot of those times he was a top 40-ish prospect. But he just hasn't progressed the way that I think people hoped, thought that he may, and the lack of, not the lack of strikes, but the inability to consistently throw all the strikes has really kind of hindered him. He made 5 starts or has made 5 starts for the Phillies, and his stuff was better in those starts. So as a secondary piece, but still probably one of the better players prospect-wise that's been traded in a deadline deal in the last handful of years. Like, he's going to slot in to, I mean, potentially next year at the back of the rotation. Like, he's going to compete for that spot. Like I mentioned Zebby, I mentioned Festa and Sim. Like, you add him to that mix of probably back-end guys who have the potential to be more. Right. Yep. And that's what we saw Joe Ryan when he was acquired. Like, Joe Ryan was a back end guy who had the potential to be more. And I think that's what Abel could be. To be honest, when his assignment was AAA, like, I saw that and I'm like, well, that's a little surprising given the fact that if Ober's activated, there's still one guy short. Right. So Paddock is gone. Ober comes back. They have Ober, they have Zebby, they have Sim, Festa's hurt. They have Joe Ryan for now. And so, like, in my mind, Mick Abel is someone that's probably going to make a lot of starts down the stretch.
For sure.
And has time to figure things out. And I honestly, worst case scenario, if he ends up as a bullpen piece, his stuff will play in the bullpen.
For sure. 100%.
And so I have no problem with taking a chance with a 23-year-old about to be 24 who's been well known. And maybe just a change of scenery will help him out. I mean, we ripped on Quinn Priester. Quinn Priester's been great.
So great. I love it when we're both super wrong. Good times.
And so, like, if Mick Abel ends up as a number 4 starter for with 6 years of control, who's gonna complain about that? It's not gonna be coming from me.
I will also say, I think Jamie and I were talking about this before you hopped on here. It's very likely that Mick Abel is probably going to join the team in Cleveland, and they're just waiting to see what happens with the rest of the day tomorrow, trade-wise, before they call him up. Because it sounds like right now Ryan's locked in for Friday start against Cleveland. I would assume Ober is going to be activated for either Saturday or Sunday. They didn't have a set date yet, but it's very likely he's going to be making one of those 2 starts, and you're still going to need a third guy. You could roll out with Simeon Woods Richardson and then just save Abel for Detroit. So I'd be shocked if he doesn't show up on the team during this road trip, because I don't think they're going to be getting another top pitching prospect who's nearly major league ready, if not major league ready, to add to the rotation while they're still waiting on Festa and Lopez to get back.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly accurate.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So I want to talk a little bit about the value though here. And I guess here's my question. This is what it boils down to a little bit for me, Jeremy. I think I have two kind of questions, or like not concerns, things that make me not love the trade, and what we're not going to do, or what I'm not going to do, is speculate on like what might the return from the Dodgers have been, what might the return on the Philly from the Mariners have been, right? Like it's their job to evaluate these returns. Let's not insult anyone's intelligence. I'm sure they did their due diligence in making sure they felt like they got the best deal they could for Duran. Here's my question on the value. Duran has 2.5 years of team control. The conjecture leading up to the trade deadline was the Twins must have 2 top 100 prospects in return for Duran. They kind of got that, but I think I can see a world in which someone would call this return a little underwhelming, especially when we consider that one of those 2 prospects is a couple of years away from helping the major league team. So I guess my question is, do you think this trade is good value? And the reason I ask is because it doesn't feel like the kind of return that jumps out and says, oh my God, we absolutely had to jump on this and do this now. We had to do this or we're going to lose this type of value here. And so you could have held on to Duran and traded him in the offseason. You could have traded him next year at the deadline with 1.5 years of team control, which is still a ton of value. I think that is the crux of people's questions about the overall value of the return the Twins got. Now, if Abel was like a mid-rotation starter for 5 years for the Twins, it doesn't really matter, let alone what Tait does. But what's your initial read on kind of the value with that team control element aspect in mind for Duran?
Yeah, and that was actually like one of the first things that came to my mind. Like there was still 22 hours to work a deal.
Right.
But if the Phillies, the Mariners, the Dodgers, if they're not getting their guy, they're pivoting, right? It's not that Duran is the only option. Like they got to make a move now. And so I'm guessing that the Twins just kind of said, hey, give us your best offer. And yeah, they're going to have a little bit of leverage in that they could hold him. But with every bit of control that they lose, the value goes down.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we've seen Duran hit 100 and what do you have, 103.5 on a fastball a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
104.
So yeah, well, because they round up, it was 103.
Yeah.
But what we haven't seen this year is that gas.
Mm-hmm.
And so as he gets closer to free agency, his value to other teams go down. His return from the Twins goes down. And if there's any injury, that value goes down way more. And with velocity declines, if that happens, like that is sometimes the precursor to something more. So because it's a seller's market, because he has 2.5 years of control, because he's looks healthy still, like this just kind of made the perfect storm to trade him, right? And I think that's why they have to listen on Jax and they have to listen on Stewart, because the arm can blow up and you lose everything. And so do I think that's going to happen? No, I certainly hope it doesn't happen. But if the return would have been a pitching prospect that was major league ready, that's the 50th overall prospect, and a kind of a lotto ticket catcher that was lower, like that would have been a fine return. Yep. Right. And so it's one of those things that like you said, we're not going to speculate on who the Dodgers may have offered, who the Mariners may have offered, but 100% this was the best deal that anybody had on the table. And the value is not going to increase as his free agency gets closer. and that's the simple reality. So you do not need an elite closer if you're not competing for the playoffs. That's the truth.
This is true. And what I'm gonna drop one other thing about both the prospects in this deal real quick before we talk about where might we rank them, and then this fit question. I like to be nosy, so I've been texting some people today. The folks in the org absolutely love both of these guys. Rave reviews, right? And so I guess the question is, do you trust the organization to acquire and develop and identify the right talent? And that's going to go a long way to determining how you view this trade. But I think, despite my initial kind of like shock reaction, let's put it this way, and I'll get your take on it too. If we fast forward 6 years from now, who do you think has accrued more value from this trade if we look at some of the simple measures and metrics that we might choose to, right? WAR, WPA, etc. I think there's a fair chance that the Twins come out looking with decently good value from this trade just from Abel, let alone whatever Tait is supposed to, whatever Tait can accomplish as he rises up through the ranks and hopefully, evidences that he's a surefire major league bat.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I would favor the Twins' return over the life of their time with their respective teams. The big difference being the Phillies Duran may help the Phillies win a World Series. Right. And I'm not sure we can say, and in fact, I know we can't say the same right now about these two guys. And so when you have a team that is competing to be a World Series team, which the Phillies are, and you add this, that is a huge win. And that's why you trade Wilson Ramos for Matt Capps, right? That's why.
Stop.
But that's the reality, right? If you're one player away or two players away, you make the deal 10 times out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
If you are not two players away, you could add two players and you're not significantly closer to a World Series. So yeah, I mean, assuming good health for all parties, I still think that 12 big league years of Tait and Abel is going to be more valuable than 2.5 years of Duran.
Yeah. And so I think this is where people who have a hard time with the value, like I'm going to bucket myself as people who have a hard time with the value proposition of a catcher. Dude, we talked about the value proposition of a catcher in rookie ball the other day. I even think it's hard to have confidence in the value proposition of a catcher at high A. He's just so far from contributing, and so much can happen with both the bat and the catching skill set. So that really is a challenge for me, and I think just something I have a tough time weighing the value of. But let's touch on this, because we have talked about this, and we've had this question really much more through the lens of the draft over the past couple of years. People would always say, when are the Twins going to draft a first-round catcher?
Right.
And they never did. And they always got a couple of non-drafted free agent type guys.
Mm-hmm.
And we're uncertain what the succession plan is to Jeffers, who's a free agent at the end of next year. Vasquez is up at the end of this year. How do you feel about the organizational catching depth now, if you think about Jimenez being added in the kind of lower levels, Tait progressing towards the middle levels, you've got Zhao, you've got some potential kind of backup type guys in AA, AAA. How are you feeling now about organizational depth at catcher versus a week or so ago?
Well, it's significantly better, right? So two things I want to say here. So one, with the potential that there could be automated balls and strikes,
mm-hmm.
the receiving part may change, right? And there could be less of an emphasis on all of the other stuff, arm, which we're good here, right? And more of an emphasis on offense. The other thing that it wouldn't shock me to see would be teams kind of leaning more into, as the Twins have gone to a two catcher tandem, Like if you can find guys that can play other positions, where if you can catch 2 days a week and play somewhere else 2 days a week, and then get your day off or your 2 days off, that teams could do that. And I think both guys that they've added hours to be a little more versatile. Zhao as well, Olivar as well. Like these aren't just catchers, okay? And so I think there's a really good chance he can stick. Yesterday, catcher / first base. Today on MLB Network, it showed Tait as a catcher / DH. But if you can have value in the bat, that's huge. The other thing that if we fast forward here a little bit, what we could potentially be looking at. The Orioles have a catcher in the top 10 overall who is major league ready.
Pasaya. Yep.
Ethan Salas is 19 and has been up on the top of that list for a long time. So he's going to continue to be rated high. Blake Mitchell is another top rated catcher who's kind of on that same timeline. But then you get to the other catchers that are listed. Ballesteros, like I mentioned, has debuted. Harry Ford is close. Like, we're not too far away from potentially saying Tait's in the conversations of catching prospect in baseball, right? There's more risk there. We've talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking about a guy that if his name was, an American name, as a first round pick, right?
100%. Yeah.
And so
you mean if his name was Tait?
If his name was Tait, right? If his name was Eddie Tait, he was a first round pick coming out of high school last year, and he's in high A right now. And I think it's so hard because we see the guys come through the international market and they get sped up, and then it's like, oh, now you're 21 years old and you should be playing in the major leagues when your peers are just getting drafted out of college, and you're going to get a 2-year runway without having to ingrain yourself into a different culture. So I think it's a really good return. Painter would have been phenomenal.
But can we talk about that for a second? Because that was a little bit of a homerish pipe dream, I think. Like, regardless of team control, I'm not saying by you, Andrew, a top 10 prospect being moved for a reliever, I don't think there's any org who is doing that, let alone one with the like unicorn stuff that Andrew Painter has. And so I get how people arrived there in terms of like, well, Phillies say Painter's off the table, and then they're talking to the Phillies again. Oh, maybe is he back on the table? But that just doesn't add up to me in terms of value. But let me ask you about Abel again for a second, because I do think that when I first read the trade, I was like, oh, this feels underwhelming, right? And of course, this is going to be reliant on Abel making some tweaks and finding success as a major league starter. But let's view it through a different lens for a second, right? If we compare this approach to the draft, what do the Twins do every year? I was going to say on day 3. On day 2 of the draft, in rounds 10 through 20, they load up on college pitchers that throw 92, right? There's almost to me like a little bit of a similar approach going on now with how they're forming their rotation possibilities long term. You've got Pablo and Joe Ryan firmly at the top. That is 2 playoff caliber starters, at least for one more day, right? Yep. Then you have this cluster underneath them of David Festa, Zebby Matthews, and now you can add Mick Abel to that trio. I think you can also view this through the lens of you need one of these 3 guys to take a step forwards and be better than a back-end guy, better than a 4-5, have a chance to start a playoff game as your bar of excellence. Then the other 2 plus Sim form the back end of your rotation, and you've really extended the shelf life of said rotation. You've got Pablo and Joe Ryan for another couple of years. And so I think maybe if you view it that way as Abel is another dart to add to Zebi and Festa, and you need one of those guys to work out in order to be really well set up from a rotation point of view, maybe that makes him more kind of exciting as the second piece in this deal.
And I think you're forgetting Bailey Ober.
Sure,
right?
Bailey Ober. Completely forgot about Bailey Ober.
And so
out of sight, out of mind.
And right. And so he hasn't been great, but I think if you have, I mean, Lopez, Ryan, Ober, Zebi, Festa, Sim, Abel, and then you have your Andrew Morris potentially if he can get right. CJ Culpepper's got to be in the mix. Is Corey Lewis a novelty, or is he still something at this point? I think he is.
I think he's figuring it out. Yep.
And then that's the bridge to your Sotos
Hill.
and Dason Hills.
Yep.
And so
Riley Quicks.
And Riley Quicks. And we didn't mention Marco Raya, who maybe figures in as a relief pitcher. But it's one more arm that has a chance. And if I told you, like, if I didn't tell you the name, and I'm like 6'5" guy,
yeah,
throws 96, 90, has a really good slider, has been in the top hundreds of all of the major things for the last handful of years. But it becomes the question that we talked about Jamie Arnold, like, is it prospect fatigue? Like, you just expect more and it's not there, because it wasn't long ago that it was Painter and Abel, right?
Yep.
And what's been the significant difference? Andrew Painter didn't throw for 2 years.
This is true.
And Mick Abel did, and was still a top 100 prospect. And Andrew Painter didn't look good in the AFL, and all of a sudden he's a top 10 prospect. And so, I mean, there's something there, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
I'm just throwing up Hayden's comment because I do think this is kind of relevant. Would it be wrong of the Twins to not at least start with Painter to get to the people they really want? I mean, I haven't been in on trade conversations, but I would assume that's what you do, right? Let's start by having a conversation about your organization's top prospect, and with your initial understanding being, okay, they're probably not going to give us Andrew Painter, but we can work backwards from that as the starting point. So absolutely think that's probably spot on.
Yeah, I mean that's hey, what you want to talk about Andrew Painter? It's like, nope. Right. Okay, well, your next best pitching prospect is McAbel.
Yep.
So we'll settle on him, and then where else? And so I think that's a totally fair thing to do. Now, when you think about the Twins' past, the most similar player that they got in a pitcher in a trade would have been Alex Meyer, right? For Denard Span, and that didn't work out great. So maybe they should have settled for the next best pitching prospect in that organization, because Alex Meyer just didn't get it done.
I feel confident that the Minnesota Twins pitching development is vastly superior to what it was when Alex Meyer was acquired for Denard Span.
Yes.
Okay, two more things I want to kind of touch on with you here, Jeremy. Let's talk about the rankings piece, because people are going to ask. Let's start with Tait. Where are you putting him on your personal Twins top 20 list? I think Tait is a little easier, and we can maybe discuss, like, here's an appropriate range for both guys, and obviously people are going to have their own opinions and make up their own minds. But what do you think for Tait?
So my top, when we did this last week, I went Jenkins, Keishel, Rodriguez, Culpepper, Prelip were my top 5.
Yeah.
When I edited my list, I put Tait above Culpepper, but I'm like, you know what? And I settled on him below Culpepper. Have him at 5.
That's me too. Okay. We need to take an extended break from each other, I think, because what you just walked through is literally the exact same kind of internal monologue that I have, and I have Tait of 5 also. And I think you could make an argument for him anywhere, in my opinion, from 4 through like he's in the 4 to 6 range for me. I think if you get past 6, I think you're selling him short.
Yeah, but I also think given, and you had Rodriguez at 2, and I had Keishel at 2.
Mhm.
If you put Tait above Culpepper, you could make the argument that you can put Tait above Rodriguez.
Sure.
And so you said 4 to 6. I think 3 to 6.
Okay.
With Prelip now being my new number 6, and Prelip to me is that I'm good with my top 6 right now.
I mean, like almost immaterial, right? Because Keishel is going to be back, assuming Keishel's going to be back semi-soon down the stretch run after the Twins trade away a bunch more players and is going to graduate prospect eligibility at some point here anyway. So everyone's going to slide up and Tait's going to be your number 4.
Yep. Okay. So on your list, you went Jenkins, Rodriguez, Keishel, Culpepper. Now you have Tait. Then you had Prelip. Your 6 was Soto. Your 7 was Hill.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do I have to keep going?
Pause. No, timeout. And I do want to just like touch on, I'm like super high on Culpepper. I think we know that. And so I think having Tait at 5 currently behind Culpepper, in my opinion, I just want to put it out there, says more about Culpepper than it does about Tait.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
Okay. Abel, I find much more challenging personally.
Okay.
So let's just walk through. I'm going to go way down the list and be like, I would place him above him, and then just kind of talk through the logic, and you can interject whenever the spirit moves you. So if we go down, I think let me take Tait out because that's getting confusing. I shouldn't have added him to my list. So I had Andrew Morris at 11. I'm putting Abel above him. I had Raya at 10. I'm putting Abel above him.
Yep.
I had Quick at 9. He's never pitched professionally. I'm putting Abel above him because he's 23-year-old in AAA, close to ready to go. Houston's never taken a professional at bat.
Okay.
I feel a way about that. So now we're in I've got Prelip at 5, Soto at 6, Hill at 7.
Right. This is where we were when I stopped talking.
because I'm struggling to commit. He's in the I think you could make an argument for him being there. I don't know, man. I think you could make an argument for him being 5 all the way through 7 or 8, somewhere in that range. That's my opinion.
Yeah, 5, but now 6 because Tait's above there.
So like 6 through 9 is roughly the range for Abel. Again, like he's going to graduate prospect eligibility anyway soon. I think I would difficult, and it depends on how you feel as a starter. I think maybe temporarily he would be slotted in above Soto and Hill, but after Prelip. So maybe that puts him at 7 if Tait's also in the list.
Right. Okay, so a little less fun on my end because when you had the pitchers, I had Merrick Houston above.
Okay.
And so for me, it was a natural break. I had Prelip, then I had Houston, then I had Hill, Soto, Raya, Quick. To me, he's a better prospect. He's a higher rated prospect than all of those 4 because he's closer. And so I went on my new list, Jenkins, Keishel, Rodriguez, Culpepper, Tait, Prelip, and then I have Abel before Houston. So, and honestly, you make an argument for any of those 7
100%
in the top 100, and I think you see
all of them are in. Yeah.
Did the Twins do it?
It's not the Twins. It's in the division, though. So there is that. The Tigers acquired Rafael Montero from the Atlanta Braves from minor league infielder Jim Jarvis. So Detroit's building up their bullpen. It's small pennies compared to what we could be talking about. But hey, we didn't specify which team
I
trades
like
we'd
it,
be doing
Theo.
before the show, so I'm capitalizing on this.
I love it. That's fun. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, Theo. It like super stresses me out every time you do that because I'm waiting for you to say like Willie Castro has been traded to.
We're gonna save that for the live stream tomorrow.
Oh man!
And then Greg is just gonna go, what does this mean for Willie Castro?
Yeah, there you
What
go.
does this mean for Chris Pat?
Hey, Greg's in the comments. You can kick him out again.
Do we know which
no,
Greg it is?
don't do that because we're teaming up with Twins Off Daily tomorrow for a really awesome 2-hour trade deadline special live stream. So this is our kind of dress rehearsal. So I've got Jenkins, Erod, Keishel, Culpepper, Tait, Prelip, Abel, Soto, Hill and then Houston Quick at 10 and 11. That's looking pretty strong.
Mhm.
As just like a top 10 prospects in general, with Keishel and Abel probably soon to graduate from that system. How are you feeling about where the kind of Twin system stands at the moment as you kind of look at your updated list and where you've folded these guys in?
Yeah, I mean it's certainly stronger. And I was looking like today. It's like, okay, if they make all the trades,
Oh my God!
how many top prospects do they have that are major league ready? So like Pierce Noel, I didn't have in my top 20. Obviously, he gets the call, but
He showed some good flashes. I thought. Did you watch?
I didn't see. I don't know what I was doing, but I didn't get to watch all of it. I was mostly following on Twitter. But I figure they have a handful of guys, in Double-A or higher, and now you've just added another pitcher and a catcher that is not far from there. So, I feel pretty good about the organization as a whole. I would anticipate a return for Castro will either be one that you get, the 3 or 4 guys, or you get the one prospect that's not in the top 100. But will be someone that'll fit like in that 12.
In the next like quadrant. So it's like a top 150, top 125 type of deal.
Yeah, that fits in the 12 to 14 range for an organization with a decent talent pool prospect. Yeah. So, and then I would anticipate at this point Castro goes for sure, Coulomb goes for sure. And they got to listen on Jax, right? If you're willing to trade a top 100 prospect for Duran, you got to listen. Maybe Stewart goes. But you got to listen.
So you're kind of segueing to what I wanted to talk about to finish up. And this is what I'm really curious about. And this is, I think another portion of my, I don't know how I feel about this trade, or I don't like this trade from the jump was, and it's always going to be a stronger reaction right at the beginning. You wisely keep your thoughts to yourself. I unwisely.
You were angry.
I was annoyed. Here's my wondering. I think the fits are a little bit weird of these prospects. Let's remove value from the conversation for a moment. Okay. So we've agreed that if we fast forward 6 years, we think this is going to probably look pretty decent for the Twins just because of Mick Abel, because he's going to be like a back-end guy who accrues 1 to 2 WAR, hopefully every year for 3, 4, 5 years. The fits seem a little bit weird to me, and here's what I mean. The centerpiece of this deal is Tait, and he is a ways away from contributing to your roster. And we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of how we had focused most of our conversation on who are guys who can come up and contribute right away. When the Twins got Joe Ryan for Nelson Cruz, he was someone who was at AAA kind of on the cusp of being ready for the majors. Tait is not that. And so if you add Abel to that mix, who's someone who the talent is undeniable, the stuff is really good, but there is clearly still work to do to make him a polished, highly effective major league starter. To me, my headline is there's 2 guys for whom work is needed or time is needed or both. Does that represent, or does that indicate that the Twins front office is shifting away from we're building a sustainable winner, we're building back up to compete in 2026? Because I think it's I don't think it's questionable that Tait is going to help you in 2026. He's not. Abel's probably going to be working through it in the way that Zebby and David Festa are working through it this year. And so it seems to me a trade with a little bit more of a long-term view and lens in mind, and that hasn't really been the Twins' MO. Their MO has been, we want guys who are almost ready to contribute, and it just makes me wonder if they are accruing value for new ownership, potentially different front office, if there's a slight change in approach. It's just something that gave me pause today while I was kind of thinking about this package as a whole, and I'm curious for your take on whether you kind of feel the same way, or is it just as simple as like, no, these are just two prospects who the organization really liked a ton?
Yeah, I would err more towards that direction. Felvey is the president. He's not going anywhere, right? The front office isn't going to change. The front office has changed like twice in my lifetime. It just doesn't change.
And you're old, as we know.
That's true. And I think the other part of that is the Twins right now field a pretty young team. Offensively, Royce Lewis, Brooks Lee, Wallner, Keisha when he's healthy, Julian and Miranda played a ton last year. That I think it's we have a lot of guys that we need to give opportunities for to see what they are and if they can be a part of the long-term deal. That's going to have to be. You're not going to add a whole. You can't add all of these guys that have to be added to the 40-man and need a 40-man spot at the same time.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So like adding another pitcher when you've now traded two to the 40, that's not a big deal. Even if you added a catcher to the 40-man, that's not a huge deal. But you gotta time this out in a way that you're not forced to add 6 or 7 guys the same year. And when you've had that really good draft, and I haven't looked at all the timelines, but you have that draft with all those pitchers, like there's going to be a roster crunch at some point. And so if you add another guy that's close, it kind of muddies that up. So in my mind, I'm thinking the opposite. I'm like, man, if you can add a big time prospect that's further away, yeah, there's more risk there. But because you do that, you also get this other guy that can help. It doesn't fix the who's going to be the second catcher next year. It doesn't give the Twins ability to move Ryan Jeffers, but they're not done either, right? So do I think they're going to turn around and flip Mick Abel? I don't, but I do think that they have more options. If they trade Castro and get a AAA catcher back, that wouldn't be overly surprising because of the way this all works. There are a lot of comments here about the front office, so maybe we need to talk more about that.
Okay, we're getting low on time, right? And so 2 more things I want to do is 1, I want to get your take on what tomorrow looks like because I feel like it's going to be nuts. And then 2, I want to finish up by plugging for the stream that we're going to do tomorrow with the Twins off daily crew because I think it's going to be really fun. So when we're at Caribou, I asked you, or when I was at Caribou with no power, I asked you what's going to happen. And I said I would ask you again, what do you think is going to happen, or like what's next? We get to 5:05 tomorrow. Who else do you think is gone from org? Because you were closer than I was on the first time that we went through this.
Coolum's gone for sure. Castro's gone for sure. Bader's gone for sure. I would say if anybody, I would say 50-50 on Vasquez, and I'm going to lean towards another pitcher going too, whether that's Stewart or Varland or Jax or potentially Ryan. I think they'd have to be overwhelmed to trade him. But I do think if the reliever market is as hot as it is, if they could trade Brock Stewart, why wouldn't you? I mean, that, or if someone offers the moon for Griffin Jax, I think that we see another relief pitcher go as well. So that's what Coulomb, another relief pitcher, Vasquez, Bader, Castro, 5 more.
Yeah.
Wow. What do you think, Theo?
I think that's very likely. I know Bobby Nightingale reported just shortly after the Duran news broke that it seems unlikely Jax is going to get moved because teams are not meeting the Twins' asking price for him. So I think he stays, especially since he's had these bad outings of late, and that's probably devalued him. I mean, he's still a great reliever, but in this way, he doesn't have the postseason pressure, which teams probably aren't really ready to rely on him for. Bader's for sure gone. Coulomb, it's going to suck, but he's going to go. I think, maybe you just trade Bader for, a passable left-handed reliever who's better than Cody Funderburk just to plug him into the bullpen to replace Danny Coulomb. Ty France is definitely staying. No one's going to be trading for him. Vasquez, I think the Red Sox are the best suitors just because Connor Juan has been terrible for them, and he has a good rapport with them. Obviously, the franchise he came up with, and he may not be the best hitter for them, but he would definitely be a better defensive catcher than some of the guys that got over there. I'd say that's still like 40-60, but I think, if they find the right deal, they'll move Vasquez, and it'll probably be with the Red Sox. Joe Ryan definitely doesn't move because this was the first trade since Corbin Burns where we saw a top 100 prospect get moved, let alone two. So I don't think Joe Ryan gets moved because the teams are so attached to them.
What do you think? You think they're done, Jamie?
No, definitely not done. I think all the impending free agents you guys have already touched on. I thought one high leverage reliever was the most likely outcome. I can see a second, maybe not Jax, but maybe Stewart. I think Stewart makes a little more sense if there's a robust market for him, just given his health history. I don't think it makes much sense at all to trade Joe Ryan unless you get something that dwarfs the return they got for Duran personally. So I just don't see it happening. You have plenty of time to make that decision when there's more certainty around front office ownership, all of those things.
I would also make note of if you keep Jax for the last 2 months and he turns things around and looks more closely to how he was last year, and you don't know what things are going to look like in the offseason, and you can bump his trade value up, then maybe then under a new front office you move him and you have a better luck of getting the return you're hoping for.
Yep.
One thing we also didn't say a word about was Carlos.
Don't talk about Correa. Do not bring it up. There's no way. There's no way, dude. Come on.
So we talked to him after the game today since he was out. I was just after we did pregame with Rocco. John Paul Morosi of MLB Network put out there, he's not on the lineup. No further context. And I was like, did you not pay attention to what happened yesterday? So I quote to you.
He was just stirring the pot all day, dude.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what he does. But I put it out there for the record for Twins fans. Here's the thing.
There's a universe where this happens.
It's only going to happen if it's Houston. Like that.
100%.
Yeah. He's not waiving his no trade clause for any other team than Houston. I still think because they have Jeremy Pena coming back. He's starting rehab assignment on Friday. I know Correa is probably still wanting to stay at shortstop for at least a couple more years and not really willing to move to third base. And Isaac Paredes might be out for the season, but he's going to be back next year. So I would expect the Astros to get Eugenio Suarez. I feel like they're one of the more front runners just because he's a rental. Yeah. So, I mean, again, the Twins would have to expect the Astros to take a good chunk of the remainder of his contract, which I don't know if they're willing to do. And then, their farm system is not as strong as it used to be. So are they going to get the prospect capital they want in return for Brett? No. So he's staying. I really have a hard time believing he's going to be moved. And again, I would say it's 1585 he goes to Houston.
Sure.
I think
there's 100% a universe where they agree on the money, and the Twins are going to have to eat some salary. The one thing I saw was that do the Twins take back Javier's contract, which I would 100% take back because he's rehabbed now to the point where he's going to be close. Sure, I would take that back. But if you can get to the point where you're like, we could save, pick a number, 30 million or 50 million or 60 million, and get out from under that contract and get something back of value, I could totally see them do that. Does that make ownership coming in look at things differently. Like Brooks Lee's going to play short for the rest of the season. Kalen Culpepper is going to be there in next year at some point. I think clubhouse wise that would be a killer. But if you trade 7 guys off your 26, and then you trade like the whole team's turned over anyway, right?
Yeah.
Let's put this up real quick from Kale, because not necessarily don't have an answer here, but I do think like there's a similarity and a parallel to draw between trade deadline day and draft day. The only thing that we should expect tomorrow, in my opinion, is chaos. And I do, like Jeremy, I agree with one thing, which is like, of course, there's a universe in which it happens, probably pretty unlikely. There's also a universe in which someone we really haven't talked about much on the Twins roster gets moved tomorrow. Larnach, Jeffers, Matt Wallner. Obviously, super unlikely, maybe some of those names, but there's a universe in which that happens too. And oh god,
I want to do it one more time because we got another trade. It involves a former Minnesota Twin. Ken Rosenthal is reporting that the Reds are close to acquiring Zach Littell from the Tampa Bay Rays.
Right.
P.S. Yes. What the Reds gave up for Brian Hayes was light.
Taylor Rogers. I mean, that's another thing. The Twins could go trade for Taylor Rogers and get him out of Pittsburgh. He'd have a better time here than there.
He'll get moved from Pittsburgh, I'm sure. Tomorrow, we are going to stream again, but this time with friends. Excited that we're going to be streaming the first ever collab episode between Destination the Show and the Twins Off Daily crew. That's going to be from 3:30 Central to 5:30 Central. So we will break down what the Twins have done so far. We'll dig into moves as they come in. We'll obviously break down any Twins trades. There'll be a rotating list of folks. Might have some guests on. It should be really, really fun. So hope folks will consider joining us for that. It'll be 2 hours of Twin-centric deadline chatter. Until then, thank you guys for joining us and checking out the show. We will catch you tomorrow.